Hi everyone, Tom Wolfe here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to create this simple bass sequence in Arturia Pigments. And mod wheel. Okay, so as you can hear, we've got this really quite simple bass sequence with quite a lot of delay on it. This is a preset called The Way Down, and it's included in the Synth Vault in October 2021. If you're a Synth Vault member, you can head to the members area and download this preset now. If you're not a member yet, you can head to synthvault.net and you can get your free membership and you'll be able to download this preset for absolutely free, as well as a whole load of other presets for Arturia Pigments, all of it completely free. So let's have a look at how to create this synth from scratch. Okay, so let's start off with engine 1. Now, as you can see, engine 1 is set to wavetable engine. And we've got this wavetable called Convergence, which is one of the factory wavetables that is included in Pigments 3. So to get this wavetable, you need to have the latest version of Pigments installed. So all we've got on this, we've got the position set to 0.440. And we've got a bit of frequency mod and a bit of wave folding. So if we remove both of those so we can just hear it in its kind of raw form. Quite a buzzy. Quite a buzzy kind of wavetable there. So we'll set the position back to where it was originally. And then let's turn up the frequency mod. So this was about halfway. So there we are, about 0.1. And as you can hear, just makes it quite a lot kind of dirtier. So the modulator for this is set to the kind of default position. So you've got it as a sine wave and the tuning is just set to 0 semitones. So you don't need to change anything here if you're starting from a blank canvas preset. We've then got the wave folder. So the wave folding is set up to sine again. And this is just under half. About there. So it just gives us this kind of like twangy, quite abrasive waveform that's happening there. And of course, we've already got our envelope set up for the VCA. So the attack is set to 0. The decay is set to 1.74 seconds, and we've got no sustain on it, which is why it's dying off quite quickly. And then we've also got a little bit of release. So as you can see, that is set to 82 milliseconds. Okay, so now let's come over to our engine 2 and we'll switch off engine 1. So engine 2, as you can see, is set to the analog engine. And all we've got in here is a single analog oscillator, which is set to a square wave, okay? It's set to 0 semitones, so you don't need to do anything with that. And then the volume is up to -6 dB. So that is just a basic square wave. And if we add in our engine 1, it's just giving us a bit of kind of depth to that sound as well. We've then got our sub oscillator as well. So we'll come over to utility engine and switch that on. We're not using either of the noise sample engines here, but we have got our sub oscillator on. So the sub oscillator is set to a sine wave. The coarse tuning is set to -12 semitones, and then the volume is set to 0 dB there as well. So on its own, it's a basic sine wave. And then we add in our square. And then we get our kind of twangy wavetable. So it's just giving us quite a lot of depth, a lot of that kind of bassiness to the sound. So these two engines are essentially kind of giving us that top end, that kind of twang to the sound. And this is giving us that deep kind of sub bass. So then let's switch our filter on. Okay, so we've only using filter 1 in this preset. We've got it set to multi-mode and we've got it set to a low pass 24 dB. So at the moment, the cutoff is set to 142 Hertz, and we've got a tiny bit of resonance there as well, 0.052. And we've also got a little bit of keyboard following that's going to be happening here. So that's set to 0.164. So that is now going to be a very stunted sound that almost just sounds like that sub oscillator there. And if you're not wearing decent headphones or, you know, using decent speakers, then you probably won't even be able to hear that. So what we need to do is we need to control our cutoff. So we're controlling our cutoff with our envelope 2. So let's switch that on here, and you can see we've got our envelope 2 set up. So the attack is set to 1 millisecond. Sustain is all the way off, so it's being fully controlled by our decay, which is set to 264 milliseconds. And then we've got a release of 0.74 milliseconds there as well. So it's going to take a little while to die off when we take the key off. So that is now going to be creating our kind of plucky sound there. So that is set up to 0.55. on the envelope control. And as you can see, we've also got it being controlled by the velocity as well. So what this essentially means is the harder we press the key, the more the cutoff is actually going to open. There you go. So we get a brighter sound with heavier velocities. And we're also controlling the amp mod with velocity as well. So this has got a separate control over here. So again, this is set to velocity, it's set to 0.344. So this means that the harder we press the key, the louder the note is going to sound. And obviously, you know, the softer we press it, the quieter the note is going to be. So that's going to be giving us a little bit of velocity control with this preset, which is great as we go into the sequence. So let's go into our sequencer here, and it's already going to be set up. So I've got it set to arpeggiator because I want it to play across the notes as we play them. And the rate is synced to 16th notes as well. So you can see we've already got the sequence set up here. So we've got our trigger probability. It's set to 100% on these first two notes here, 1 and 2. And then it's set to 100% on 7 and 8. And everything else is not going to be sounding. Okay. We've got the gate length of those notes set to 50%. And then we've got a little bit of velocity in here. So we've got the velocity set to 50% as played, which essentially controls the balance between whether we get 100% of our velocity being controlled by the sequencer, or whether how heavy we actually play the keys on our keyboard also controls it. So set to 50%, we're going to be getting an even blend between the two. So the harder we press our keys, the more this is actually going to kind of have an effect. But that sounds like this. And of course, if we press down multiple keys, it's going to spread across it because of the arpeggiator. Okay, so quite a basic sequence there. We're then going to come across to our effects. So the last thing for the basic sound is just the delay. So we've got the bass synth set up already now, and now we want our delay. So I've got it set to the normal Pigments delay there. And as you can see, we've got the dry wet mix set to 0% currently, but you can see it is actually being controlled by a macro. This is just so that you kind of have control of it while you're playing. You can kind of turn the delay up and down, or kind of easy control if you're using it for the mix. So that is actually kind of set up on there. So when this is turned up, despite the fact that this looks like it's on 0%, we are actually going to be getting that delay in there. Okay, so the time is set to 8th notes. Fine tuning is set to 0. We've got the feedback set to just under 0.3. We've got it set to ping pong, and we've got the stereo width to just over halfway, 0.548. But the main thing here is our high pass frequency. So without that, all our notes kind of go into each other, and you'll probably be getting that if you're wearing headphones or listening on a good pair of speakers. The bass response, kind of all the notes that are blur together with our delay, they kind of crash into each other, and it kind of causes it to be a little bit muddy. So with our delay, we want to control that. We want to remove some of that really kind of low frequency stuff so that it's not crashing into each other and it's not muddying up our kind of bass there. So now we've got this really kind of plucky but simple bass synth, and we're adding this delay to it, which kind of rolls off the end of it and makes it a bit more kind of playful, a bit more useful, a bit more kind of tense, and not quite so plain. So lastly, we're going to set up our mod wheel and our macros. So let's start with our mod wheel. Now the mod wheel had a bit of bit crusher on it. So we'll switch on our bit crusher here. And again, you can see that the dry wet signal is set to 0%, but that is because we're controlling it with our mod wheel. So our mod wheel control is set to full on there. So when our mod wheel is fully open, we're going to be getting 100% wet signal here. The down sample is set to 12.5, and then we've got the bit depth set to 10.9 bits. So we just get this nice kind of crunchy bit crusher on that, which which is an effect that I really like. And then lastly, we're going to look at our macro. So we've already looked at our delay macro here on macro 4. So let's just have a look at our first 3. So on macro 1, as you can see, we've got it controlling the timbre. So macro 1 is set up to control our filter 1 cutoff and resonance. So what's essentially going to happen is it's just going to kind of brighten it up and also kind of sharpen it a little bit there. Okay, and then on macro 2, we've got it set to length. So you can see here, we've got it set to our envelope 1 release. So that is going to be opening our release by 0.22. And then we've got our envelope 2 decay. So our envelope 2 is controlling our filter. So it's going to be opening up our filter decay. And essentially what is going to be happening here is it's going to be elongating our sound, which is a really nice thing to kind of be able to control on the fly. And then lastly, on macro 3, we've got our distortion. Okay, so we'll come over to our effects unit and we've got our distortion here. So without the macro, our dry wet mix is set to 0, but of course we're using the macro to bring in that distortion. So when the macro's open fully, it's going to be essentially nearly 80% wet mix. So there's still going to be a little bit of dry mix there. We've got the drive turned up to 29.8 dB, and then we've got the output gain kind of turned down to minus 21.8 because that's essentially going to be offsetting the volume difference that we're going to be getting when we drive that. So let's open that up. There we are. So we just get kind of a dirty distorted sound if we take our bit crush off there. Okay, so there you have the preset, the way down. Hopefully you enjoyed creating that preset. As I said at the start, this is one of the presets included in the October 2021 Synth Vault. Now, if you're a Synth Vault member, you can download this preset for free just by heading to synthvault.net, logging into your account and downloading it from the members area. If you're not yet a Synth Vault member, you can get a free membership just by heading to synthvault.net, and then you'll be able to download this preset for free, as well as a load of other free presets for Arturia Pigments, Omnisphere, and different UHE synth every single month and a different wildcard synth every single month. And you will be getting new presets for all of those every single month for completely free. Okay, so thank you for watching this video, and until next time, take care.